Hey, what's up, everyone? Ready to do another Free Advice Friday with you. Looking forward to hanging out, as always, on a Friday afternoon and answering all of your voiceover business and marketing questions, or at least answering as many voiceover business and marketing questions as I can get to in the span of an hour. So, that is what Free Advice Friday is all about, something that I really deeply enjoy doing. Not only do I get to hear what's up with you guys and what you're thinking about, what your struggles are, and trying to find ways to add value to you and to your business, but it also keeps me sharp, keeps me on my toes, and keeps me aware of what it is that you guys are looking for some help with or want to know more about so that I can learn more about those subjects and ultimately be able to help you as well. So, if you have a voiceover business and marketing question that you would like to ask and get answered, this is the place to do it. When you're jumping on the live stream here, you can feel free to type a question into the comments. I would just ask if you do have a question that you would like to ask, if you could put a Q beside it before you type your question. Makes it pop out a little bit easier for me to find in the chat stream there. But looking forward to answering as many questions as I can today on Free Advice Friday. Now, one of the things that I wanted to start off with today, while we're waiting for some people to jump in on the live stream and waiting for some questions to get going, one of the things that I try to be really upfront about when I am teaching marketing is that by and large, this is a long game. The things that I am teaching you, they work, but they work when they are done consistently over time. And I always want to try to set realistic expectations about that because I think it's one of the areas where a lot of voice actors get confused. They think that if they sign up for LinkedIn, send a few connection requests, reach out to a couple of people, that they're going to start booking work. Or if I send a bunch of marketing emails this week, by next week I should have some auditions coming in. Or if I start creating content for YouTube or Instagram or TikTok, within a couple of weeks I'm going to have a bunch of followers and away we go. I'm not going to say that those things aren't possible. Obviously, anything is possible on the internet. There are stories that we have all heard of people who signed up for a brand new TikTok account, had never posted a piece of content in their life, and their first video goes viral. It can happen. It is just very unlikely to happen. I say the same thing about email marketing. There is always the possibility that you are going to email the exact right person on the exact right day with the exact right message, and they are going to need you in that moment, and they are going to hire you in that moment. That is always a possibility. It is just highly unlikely. It is much more likely that you are going to email somebody, and they're going to take a couple of weeks, and maybe they're going to respond to you, and you're going to have some follow-ups with them over the course of the next few weeks or the next few months, and maybe 6 months down the road, maybe a year down the road, they've got something for you. And that's when they ultimately decide that they're going to hire you. Marketing is a long game. It is a long game that requires consistency over time. And I cannot express this enough, that it requires consistency over time. If you want email marketing to work for you, you're going to have to send 5 or 10 emails a day, 5 days a week for a year in order to gain some traction and start to build something with your business. If you want to make LinkedIn work with you, then you need to be intentional about spending 10 or 15 minutes at minimum on that platform every single day, making a point of sending connection requests, dropping comments on the things that people are sharing, creating engaging content of your own. And you're going to have to do that every week consistently for a year. I would say that for any of the social media platforms. If you want YouTube to work for you, then you're going to have to show up every single week on YouTube with new, great content that is engaging and building an audience. If you're going to do it on TikTok or Instagram, it's the same thing. If you're going to do it with in-person networking, it's the same thing. All of these different strategies and tactics that are available to you, they will work. They can work. They do work. But they work when you do it consistently over time for the long run. Let me say that again. Consistently over time for the long run. And I always try to create realistic expectations with that. When I sell Voiceover Marketing Playbook, I try to make it very clear through the content that I deliver with Voiceover Marketing Playbook that this is a strategy that works. It's the strategy that I use in my own voiceover business, but it works because I do it every day. It works because I show up consistently over time. I've been doing it for years. That is how marketing is going to produce results for you. So if you are frustrated that you are not seeing the results that you want to see from your marketing, whatever form of marketing you're doing right now, those are a couple of the things that I would be looking at. First and foremost, are you doing it on a consistent basis? And when I say on a consistent basis, I don't mean I showed up and posted on LinkedIn, and then a few weeks later I showed up and posted on LinkedIn, and then a few months after that I showed up and I sent some connection requests on LinkedIn. I'm talking about, are you showing up every single day? Are you sending emails every single day? Are you being present on whatever social media channel you are choosing, or social media channels that you're choosing? Are you being present every single day? Are you filling your pipeline every single day? And are you doing it over the long term? Don't talk to me when you've done it for 6 weeks. Talk to me when you've done it for 6 months or a year. Those are the things that are going to move the needle. So with that, I would love to answer your questions. I see that some are already popping into the chat, so let's get started here. And we are going to start with Roll, who says, "Hey, Mark, someone suggested I add an active email link to my website near the demos up front for a younger generation of voice seekers who don't want the extra step of clicking contact. Spam risk increased." Yes, spam risk probably increased. However, conversion rates also likely increased. And so it's actually worth the trade-off. And this is something I've been talking about for years. One of the things you have to think about is, where are the people that are coming to your website? Where are they coming to your website from? More and more, what we see is people are coming from mobile devices. They're coming from tablets, or they're coming from phones. Filling out a form on a phone is one of the greatest ways to ensure that nobody communicates with you. It's so frustrating to try to do. It's so frustrating to try to type in the tiny little boxes. So many of the forms are not optimized for mobile. Even if they are optimized for mobile, it's still a pain in the butt to be able to type in all those tiny little boxes. And so for me, if I can just click an email address and it automatically opens in my email software and I can just fire off a message, you're removing barriers. And every barrier that you remove is going to increase the likelihood of conversion. So I am all for having your phone number clickable. I am all for having your email address clickable. And I am all for having that in a place that is usually up towards the very top of the page, very close to your demos. That way, if somebody listens to your demos and they think, man, this is really good, it's literally just one click away to be able to communicate with you. So yeah, I am all for that suggestion. I think it's a really smart suggestion. "I was recording an audition and was feeling under the weather, so decided not to submit. Is this the right decision?" I think so. I think that's a decision that we all have to make ultimately. And look, we get sick. We are humans too. I have had to go to clients in the past, and I will continue to have to do this as well, when they've sent me audition opportunities and said, "Look, I'm not feeling my best right now. Can you sit on this for a couple days?" And in almost all instances, they are more than willing to sit for a couple of days. Obviously, if they're under a tight deadline, different circumstances, and I wouldn't want to mess up their deadline anyway, but they understand that we are human and we get sick too. I would say the same thing about bookings. I have had many instances in the past where a client has come to me with a booking and I've said, "I'm not feeling my best. Can I get another day or two on the deadline on this one and get back to you?" And in almost all instances, they are willing to work with me on that deadline. The other thing that I have done in the past is, if maybe I'm feeling like 80% or 85%, I have recorded a sample and sent it to the client and said, "Look, I've been down with a cold for a few days. I haven't been feeling my best. I'm about 90% of the way there. Here's a sample of where I'm at. If this sounds good to you, I'll finish the job right now. If not, I'm happy to submit again in a day or two if you're able to wait and if it's not going to compromise your deadline." So yeah, if you're not feeling your best, because here's the other thing. If you're submitting auditions, particularly if you're submitting auditions to people you haven't submitted for in the past, this is your first impression. What kind of first impression do you want to make? I would rather be honest about the fact that I am not feeling great than submit an audition where I don't sound great and try to get away with it. So in those types of instances, I am all for holding off and waiting. That's a really good question. Again, if you have a question that you would like to ask on Free Advice Friday, feel free to type it into the comments, and I am happy to answer as many of your questions as I can get to. If you put a Q beside it when you type it into the comments, it makes it pop out on my screen a little bit easier, and I'm happy to get to as many questions as I can. Bruce says, "Where can I find good, free, practical info on writing effective marketing emails?" good, free, practical info. I'm sure there's probably somebody sharing content on YouTube. I've done a number of podcasts in the past on email marketing. So you could go right on my YouTube channel here, or you could, and because many of the podcast episodes are posted on this YouTube channel, or you could also go to Apple, Spotify, wherever you enjoy the Everyday VOpreneur podcast, assuming you enjoy the Everyday VOpreneur podcast. And you can search up some episodes as well, because I have done episodes in the past on email marketing and offering tips for email marketing. The biggest things, let me give you a couple of tips right out of the gate. First and foremost, I think that a personalized email is going to be exponentially more effective than a generic form letter. And when I say personalized, I'm not specifically saying that you have to deep dive into the individual recipient's life and try to make an email that's personal to them. I'm just saying when you are writing that email to that company, prove to them that this is not just another generic form letter, that you've actually taken the time to look up the company, you know a little bit about the company, you're confident in your ability to add value to the company. I think those types of things are really important. I think every email should have a very clear call to action. What is the next step that you want them to take? If you leave it vague, they will likely not do anything. And so one of the things that I have learned over time is the more clear and concise that you can make that call to action, usually the higher conversion that you will get. So what is your objective? Is it to get them to schedule a meeting? Is it to get them to send you an audition? Is it to get them to go to your website and listen to your demos? So some sort of very clear call to action, I think, is really, really important. And I would also say that shorter is better than longer. I think about how you interact with your own inbox and how you interact with the marketing messages that you're getting on a daily basis. And from those cold messages that you're getting, how many of those that are really long are you sitting down and reading from start to finish? Probably none, right? So think about how you interact with your own, and then absolutely use that and keep that in mind as you are writing your marketing emails. Consistently over time. That is my problem. It's so difficult for me. This is the biggest thing. And I tell you this as someone who has literally coached thousands of voice actors, literally thousands of voice actors. I would say if it's not the number one, it is easily inside of the top 3 reasons why most voice actors are struggling with their marketing. Is because they are giving up too soon and they are not being consistent over time. We live in an instant gratification society. Last night, Kaylee played her very first soccer game. She's 4 years old, and the league is for 5 and up. But because her sister is a coach, we were able to get her in. And so she's playing in her very first soccer game. So she's never done anything like this before. She is not a soccer player yet. They literally had like a 5-minute lesson and then away they went in their first game. Totally adorable. But as I'm sitting there watching Kaylee playing soccer, I'm thinking, I bet if I got her a soccer net and a soccer ball, she would practice at home and it would be really fun for her. So as I'm sitting there watching her play her soccer game, I literally go onto Amazon and I find a little toddler, soccer ball and soccer net combo that I can get to set in the backyard. And I ordered it while I was sitting at the game. And it's going to arrive probably while I'm in the middle of this live stream. And so this weekend, Kaylee will be in the backyard playing soccer in the backyard. But this is what we're used to. We're used to living in a world where we can go online and get anything we want the next day. And it's messed us up because we've created this false expectation that everything works that way. And the reality is that everything doesn't work that way. You don't build a social media following overnight. You don't build out your CRM overnight. You don't fill your leads pipeline overnight. You don't create brand recognition overnight. These things take consistency over time. But because we are so used to having everything so quickly, it makes it that much harder for us to follow through. And so the ones who are achieving things in their business, the ones who are making TikTok work or Instagram work or YouTube work or podcasting work or email marketing work, whatever it is, those are the people who are showing up consistently over time. Show up consistently over time. Briscoe says, Mark, do you have any thoughts on Alignable as a marketing resource? I've discovered that it's a good place to find free local business owner meetups in lieu of joining the Chamber of Commerce. I have to tell you straight up, I had no idea that Alignable still existed. I legitimately didn't. I was shocked actually to find out that Alignable still existed. Alignable probably first came out, I don't know what, 10 or 15 years ago, maybe when Alignable first showed up on the scene. And Alignable was trying really hard to be LinkedIn, but LinkedIn was already LinkedIn. And so Alignable really didn't have a value proposition. And so I went through, there was probably about a 6-month stretch where it felt like every day I was getting 6 different requests to connect on Alignable. And then it just kind of faded away. And I thought that was the end of Alignable. And in the last couple of months, I've seen more and more people starting to talk about it again. And so obviously that was not the end of Alignable. Obviously they have I don't know, risen from the ashes. They are the great phoenix of social media, perhaps. So I'm very curious to see how it actually plays out. I've heard some people say that there are some opportunities to make local connections, and I think that's great if that's actually what is going on. I was just genuinely surprised. I will say that any tool that gives you another opportunity to get connected to potential buyers is a tool that is worth exploring. So, I need another social media platform like I need a hole in my head. So will I be signing up for Alignable if all of a sudden I start seeing all the connection requests again? I probably won't. But I also live in a small town, and that makes a big difference too. If I was living in a major center where there's a larger population base and there's a higher probability that more people are joining the platform, then there's a different value proposition in that case. And so if it is actually giving you the opportunity to get connected to some people, then, you got nothing to lose by giving it a shot for a little while and seeing whether or not it pans out. The other thing I would say, though, is in the words of Kenny Rogers, know when to fold them. If you're putting effort into Alignable, if you're putting time into it consistently and you're just not seeing the results because it doesn't have the same platform base as a LinkedIn, know when to cut your losses and move on to a different platform. I'm on several P2Ps, but have yet to book anything. I have 2 DIY demos that I feel are on par with other VOs that are booking on P2Ps. I have no clients to show. When is it okay to start marketing? So there's a couple of things to unpack in that statement. When you're creating your own DIY demos, obviously you're very close to those demos. You created them. And sometimes when we are too close to things, we can't look at them truly objectively. Could you submit your DIY demo to One Voice or to Sovis and get it nominated for an award? Because if you can't, then it maybe isn't as good as you think. And I'm not trying to be rude here. I'm just trying to be realistic. I'm trying to set realistic expectations. If you submitted your DIY demo to Atlas or CESD or some of these other top agencies, are they going to listen to it? If they're not, then it's maybe not as competitive as you think. And so that would be the first thing I would say is, are you actually listening to your demo objectively, or are you just listening to it because we're too close to our own stuff? And I'm speaking as someone who's done DIY demos early in my career and was too close to his own stuff. Don't do DIY demos anymore. So that's one thing that I would say. The other thing that I would say is if you are consistently submitting auditions for these sites and you are not booking, that to me probably points to your read more than anything. If you are not able to deliver a competitive read based on what is booking in the marketplace today, then whether you have professional demos or DIY demos doesn't really matter as much, because ultimately your auditions are what are going to result in the booking. And so if you've never taken any kind of coaching with a reputable professional voiceover coach, you're probably not competitive on the sites. And again, I'm not trying to be rude. I'm just trying to be honest. Think about it. There are multi-thousands of voice actors who are on these platforms, and the ones that are booking consistently over and over and over again are probably also the ones who are coaching on a monthly basis at least. Like, I know some of these top booking talent. I know how much some of these people are coaching and how hard they're working to stay on top of trends. Not everybody can go out and spend $200 an hour on coaching. I understand that. And so I think there are other alternatives that are out there that you can do in the interim while you're working and building up. I think there are workshops and group classes that you can take that are often a lot more affordable. Usually the ticket price is a lot lower on those than private coaching, just because they're being done at scale. So that's something that I would certainly be looking at. There's so many different voiceover podcasts who are having so many amazing guests. I mean, I'll tell you right now, I got Tina Marasco on the show next week. It's literally a 1-hour masterclass in commercial voiceover. Like, I had an entire interview prepped for Tina, and I used almost none of the questions that I prepped for her because once she started going, she was just on fire. And I just shut up and let her talk. And I was writing notes. If you watch the video version on YouTube, you'll see me like I often look like I'm not watching what she's talking about. It's because I was taking notes myself during the entire interview. I mean, it's literally a 1-hour masterclass on commercial voiceover. So look for those types of opportunities as well. This is an insanely competitive industry. And I think one of the disservices that has been done in this industry is because the barriers to entry are low. And what I mean by that is if you have a credit card, you can get on online casting. If you have a computer and even a cheap USB microphone with a credit card, you can get on online casting and start submitting immediately. The barriers to entry can be very low, but you are competing against people on those sites who have spent $15, $20, $25,000+ in building out their home studios, working with professional coaches, getting professional demos done, building out professional websites. Like, that is what you're up against. And so we make it sound, I use that term very loosely. There are some who make it sound like it's an incredibly easy industry to get in and get started in. And in some senses, they're not wrong. But what you're not getting told when they are telling you that is how insanely competitive the industry actually is. And you need to be in a position in order to be able to compete with those people if you want to have any chance of making money in this game. Kurt says, if you were moving to another country with the next few months taken up with preparations, how would that affect your marketing strategy? Set up a sequence in Nimble and let it run while you pack? Yeah, I would. I talked about at the beginning of the show how marketing takes time, right? When we're going away on vacation, prime example, I'm going away next week. I will be gone. I'm not going on vacation, but I'm going to Seattle next week to teach a voiceover workshop. And I'm also going to Vancouver to teach a voiceover workshop, email marketing workshop, actually. I'm not stopping my marketing this week just because I'm going to be gone next week, because the likelihood of the emails that I'm sending this week producing results next week are slim to none. And in the event that one of those emails does produce a result, like, that's a good problem to have, and I will cross that bridge when I get there. And so I would continue marketing right up until the point where you're ready to move. And then if you need to send an email out that says, I'm going to be unavailable for the next 2 weeks while we pack up and move ourselves to a different country, then you send that email. And it's a touch point. And it's a fascinating touch point. And chances are some of the people that you send that email to are going to want to know more, and they're going to respond to you, and it's actually going to generate engagement. And so I think it could actually work in your favor. But I would not let the fear of that turning into potential bookings be the thing that stops me from sending the emails. I would cross those bridges when I get there. I mean, worst case scenario, we've all been there and done it. If you've got a laptop and a microphone and a quiet place to record, you can do a job if you need to do a job, right? TJ says, I know we live in a modern digital world, but what are your thoughts about mailing a letter to stand out? 100%, I'm on board with this in the right circumstances. This is something that I have done with success in the past with clients as a form of follow-up. This is something that I have done in the past with success with certain prospects that I really want to get on the radar of as well. And so I do think it's a way to stand out. I'm going to sneeze. You never know what's going to happen when you're live on the internet. Anyway, I do think that it is a really smart way to stand out. I don't know that it's something that I would do at scale to all new leads and stuff like that, but certainly writing thoughtful messages. I've done branded postcards with handwritten notes before with great success to clients and to certain strategic prospects. And I do think there are instances where that works. TJ says, do you suggest purchasing a subscription to skip trace sites to gain access to professional email addresses? If not, what do you suggest? I'm a big fan of Apollo. And that's one of the sites that I use to find email addresses. And you can get up to 100 a month with Apollo right now in a free plan. Used to be a lot higher. But still, 100 is a lot, and that'll keep you going for a while. There are services like hunter.io. Rocket Reach is another service as well. And I have used those with varied levels of success in the past. I've never subscribed. I've never had to subscribe. But they are ones that work with a level of success. And so there are a few different options of sites that you could at least try on a free basis for now. And like if you decided that one of them was working really well for you, then maybe you upgrade to Apollo if you need access to more. Sarah says, Nimble and LinkedIn. When I look at contacts, last contacted, only emails show up, not LinkedIn. Is it because I log these as past events? Is it possible for LinkedIn contacts to show up in last contacted? So Sarah, the way that you can do that is on the contact record. Hang on a second. I'm going to pull up Nimble so that I don't get this wrong. Just give me a second. I'm going to pull up Nimble. Let me log in here. Just open my own contact record. Okay, so let's do this. So you have the option here to do log activity. So if I click here, log activity, and I can say, sent a DM on LinkedIn. So now that will show up in my past activity. So that's the way that you can do it, is by logging an activity. It won't happen automatically the same way as emails do, obviously, but that is one of the ways that you can keep track of it and see it in Nimble and see it in your past activities feed. Risco says, what are your thoughts on having a demo created from actual work you've booked? A la K-Best. Demos are very expensive, as you know, and what better calling card than projects that have aired? Yeah, I think there's definitely a time and place for this. I think it depends on the level that you're booking at, right? There's a difference between I'm going to create a character demo from a bunch of independent student projects that I worked on, and I'm going to create a character demo from some of the AAA video games that I've worked on. There's also a difference between I'm going to create a demo from some of the local commercials that I've booked versus I'm going to create a demo from some of the regional or national commercials that I've booked. And so I think there's a couple of things that I would be thinking about in this case. I would say, one, what is the production quality? Are the production quality of the spots that I want to use on par with what I would get from a demo producer? So that'd be one thing that I would be asking. The other thing I would be asking is, do I have enough spots to show my full range? Or do I have a couple of really awesome spots that demonstrate a couple of the ranges that I'm capable of, but I might need to fill in the blanks? So rather than having to get a full demo produced, maybe I just need to get a couple of spots produced. But I think that's a really big one, is the ability to show range. And I think there's two different kinds of range. I think range in the types of reads that you're doing, but also range in, we'll call it different sectors, right? So different, like in e-learning, you could say, this is my fintech, this is my human resources, this is my sales training, this is my whatever, right? There's different types of e-learning. And I would say the same goes for commercial as well, for any genre, really. And so those are a couple of the things that I would be thinking of. I also think it probably depends on the genre that you're talking about. There's a big difference between taking some of the corporate videos that you've done or some of the explainer videos that you've done and putting those together into a demo. I mean, I did that for years. My last explainer demo, I got done. I did the explainer demo, a professional explainer demo, only because the style of the explainer had changed so much that all of my past work was no longer reflective of what was going on in that space. And so that forced my hand, and I had to get a new demo produced. But I definitely think that there are certain times when you could get away with it. Pippa says, hey, Mark, have you ever needed U.S. work authorization to voice a project for a U.S. client? I have never had anything like that. The only thing that I've ever been requested of from U.S. clients that I've been working for is my willingness to provide the W8BEN form, W8BEN form, which is what they require. I don't know if that works in all countries, but for Canada at least, that's what we provide in place of the W9 tax form. So I've only ever been asked for that before, although I do have a U.S. work visa, but I have that for other reasons. I've never needed that for doing work. I've never been asked for that to do voiceover work. Guys, I want to mention the new podcast episode, which is out. Melanie Scroggins, who is a professional voice actor, but she is also the lead strategist of Share Your Genius, which is a podcast production studio. And this episode was awesome. We're always thinking about how we can find new ways to market our voiceover business. And I get it. Not everybody gets excited about email. Not everybody gets excited about TikTok or YouTube, or not everybody gets excited about in-person networking. So the question that I put forward to Melanie to start the episode was, can a voice actor use a podcast as a marketing tool? And if she said no at that point, the interview would have been over. It would have been a very short interview. And I actually say that in the show. But fortunately, she said yes. And so then we walked through, literally, she walked through what that looks like, how you would use it as a marketing tool, but then some really great step-by-step brainstorming of how to build that show out. And we actually walked through a case study example. I totally put her on the spot. And we walked through a case study example. So what you will see or hear in that episode was completely spontaneous. It was completely happening in the moment. And it was actually a really fun exercise to go through. But ultimately, the answer was yes. A voice actor can use podcasting as a marketing tool. And no, it does not have to be a podcast about voiceover. So a very fun, very insightful interview. And so that one is available right now. It's on the YouTube channel, so you can check that out after you're done watching Free Advice Friday. It's also available Apple, Spotify, all the different places where podcasts are available for free. And you can listen to it as well at VOpreneur.com if you go onto the website to VOpreneur.com. Thanks for all the questions, guys. You guys are going rapid fire there for a little bit. If I missed your question, I apologize. I was not trying to miss any questions. So if I did miss it, feel free to put it in again, and I am happy to come back to that question. If you haven't had a chance to ask a question yet, or if there's something that you've been thinking about, please don't be shy. This is literally what I'm here for. Free Advice Friday is just me hanging out on YouTube for an hour, answering as many voiceover business and marketing questions as I can, and I'm absolutely happy to do it. If you've got a question that you would like to ask and get answered, feel free to type it into the comments. If you put that Q beside it, it just makes it a little bit easier for me to find it on my screen. And certainly happy to get through to as many questions as I possibly can here on Free Advice Friday, which is something that I always enjoy doing. Briscoe says, what other countries would you recommend trying to get representation in non-US and Canada division? So I would say any country where English is spoken is a potential country to be looking at. I think there are a few different places in Europe. And I think certain countries, they're a lot smaller. So there might be agents that actually represent more than one country, right? Like you might actually end up with like a European agent, so to speak. But I would say that any country where English is spoken, particularly where, North American style English is spoken, I think there's the potential there. I know some voice actors who have like literally a Yellow Pages thick list of agents. Like there's one guy that I know that has over 30 agents, countries all around the world. And apparently booking opportunities for many of them. And so obviously English is an international language. We have the good fortune of that. And so any place that is open to accepting English talent on the roster, any place where there's a population of English speaking people, or where multinational corporations are operating and doing business, I think that there's certainly opportunities there. So, this is one of those instances where I don't think you have anything to lose by sending the email and asking the question. Now, obviously, we have to take into consideration the politics and the geopolitics of what is going on in the world right now. Could that be a factor? Possibly. But again, you got nothing to lose by asking. Maybe you wait a couple months until we see how everything's going to play out. But again, it's one of those instances where it doesn't hurt to ask the question, right? It doesn't hurt to ask the question. What else do you guys want to talk about? What else can I help you with on Free Advice Friday? Terry says, I'm talking about a political demo being made from Booked. So, what I would say with a political demo is it going to be reflective of what is going to be happening in the upcoming midterms, right? So, the presidential election was a big deal. Obviously, the results of the presidential election have a massive impact on what the next round is going to look like. So, the next round is going to be the midterms. Is your demo going to be reflective of what is going to be happening in the midterms? Is it going to be reflective as far as the language? Is it going to be reflective in regards to the tone? Is it going to be reflective in regards to the issues? That is not a question that I can answer because I am not a political expert by any stretch of the imagination. That would be a question that would be much better served to somebody like a Celia Siegel or a J. Michael Collins or Brandon Perry are some of the people who are heavy in the production space for political and doing those demos and helping voice actors get that kind of work. But that's the thing that I would be looking at in the political space in particular. Joseph says, is there a social media site that you would prioritize as being more effective for VO marketing? That's a really interesting question, Joseph. And this is going to sound like a non-answer or it's going to sound like a really, passive scapegoat kind of answer. I genuinely believe that the most effective social media platform is the one that you will use. And it's something that I say all the time, but I genuinely believe that. LinkedIn can be an amazing tool for marketing your voiceover business. It is one of my favorite platforms for marketing my voiceover business. It's where some of my biggest clients have come from a marketing standpoint. But I also use LinkedIn a lot, and I'm very intentional about how I use LinkedIn. I'm very strategic about how I use LinkedIn, and that is why it's working for me. So it's not that LinkedIn works better for me just because it's LinkedIn. It's LinkedIn works better for me because I'm very intentional about using it in the way that it was intended and making it work for me. With that in mind, you could say the same thing about YouTube. You could say the same thing about TikTok. You could say the same thing about Instagram. You could say the same thing about podcasting. Jody Krangle does a podcast, and Jody has made that podcast work for her as a powerful tool for her marketing. Tawny Plattis is crushing YouTube, and she's made YouTube an incredibly effective tool for her voiceover marketing. Stefan Johnson is killing it on TikTok, and he has turned that into an incredibly effective marketing tool for his voiceover. And so I don't know that one platform is better than the other specifically from a voiceover marketing standpoint, because I really do genuinely believe that you will get the results from the platform based on what you are putting into the platform. So if you show up and you use LinkedIn every day and you're very intentional and strategic about how you use LinkedIn, then it can be an incredibly powerful marketing tool. But if you show up and use Instagram every single day and are very intentional and strategic about how you use Instagram, I believe you can just as easily use that as an effective marketing tool for your business. And so I think one of the questions that I would be looking at more so than just platform as the macro question, which platform should I choose? I would also be thinking about what kind of content am I most likely to create consistently over time, and where does that content fit? So I think that's the other side of the question that you need to be asking. Chris says, okay, I'm looking at jumping into one of the pay-to-play sites. I've been doing VO for 6 months. So what would you suggest, VDC or V123, or is there another one that you would suggest? Okay, Chris, this is an interesting question. I think Voice123 is a fantastic platform. I think Voice123 has I got to be so careful not to get sued right now. I think Voice123 has an incredible potential as an amazing platform, but the algorithm is incredibly, deeply, painfully frustrating for so many voice actors. If you go on that site and you do not have a deep understanding of how the algorithm works, you can screw yourself. If you go on that site and you are not yet competitive, you can screw yourself. So this comes back to something that I was talking about earlier. The barriers to entry feel very low, but that doesn't mean that the competition level is very low. You are going to be competing against the best of the best of the best on Voice 123. If you are not working with the algorithm on that platform, and if you are not submitting competitive auditions, you are going to find yourself in the dreaded bottom percentile basement, and it's going to be extremely difficult for you to work yourself out of. On the flip side of that, if you are competitive, if you understand the algorithm, if your profile is set up properly, Voice 123 is going to give you some amazing opportunities, and there is money to be made on that platform. Voices.com. Again, I have to be very careful not to get sued here. Voices.com is going to give you access to a lot of jobs without an algorithm, which is nice. Voices.com is a platform that you can sign up for and you can just submit. If you want to submit for every single project that matches your specs, you can submit for every single project that matches your specs. And that is a good thing. What I would caution you with on Voices.com is to watch out for the managed projects or the professional services projects. Just know that if you are going to submit for those managed services or professional services projects, just know that you are very likely getting screwed royally on the rates. It's an ongoing issue with Voices.com. It's been talked about extensively. They have assured us repeatedly that they were going to fix it. I called the CEO out publicly to his face at VO Atlanta last year, where he assured us that it was being addressed and that it was being fixed. It has absolutely not been addressed. It has absolutely not been fixed. Absolutely nothing has changed. So be cautious of those particular projects. But for the projects that are posted on that platform that are posted directly by the buyers, you're still going to get access to a lot of opportunities, and you do not have to fight against an algorithm. The only other consideration then is budgets, and just keeping an eye on budgets and making sure that you're submitting for things that have fair rates. That can also be a challenge on Voices.com. Although, in fairness, I think that's a challenge every once in a while on Voice 123 as well. Have you ever tried to use a pressure cooker instead of your trademark smoker to make ribs? I have not. I do not have a pressure cooker. Honestly, they kind of scare me a little bit. I watch guys on Food Network using pressure cookers, and like some of them just nail it, and then some of them have the pressure cooker explode and the food turn out, terrible. And it that's always made me nervous. There's something for me though. There's something about that low and slow process that I just find incredibly therapeutic and relaxing. And so I don't mind sitting and waiting for it to get done. Speaking of politics, with the current political climate, have you seen a shift in what's being asked of VAs, moving away from casual to more naturist style? I haven't seen that specifically. I've definitely seen a shift towards more authoritative reads. And this is actually, guys, I mentioned earlier that Tina Marasco is going to be on the podcast next week. I cannot stress enough how important it is for you to listen to that interview with Tina Marasco. The episode is going to drop next Thursday. It will be on all the podcast platforms. It will be here on the YouTube platform, on YouTube channel. This is something Tina and I specifically talked about. There are two very different reads, two different types of reads that she is seeing consistently, and I have noticed as well. And the one is the read that we've all been seeing for a while, which just literally says nothing commercially, nothing announcery, which is so vague. But she breaks it down for us in that interview. The other one, which I asked her about, was this whole more authoritative, this more authoritative professional type thing. And she really broke that down. And I realized that I was coming at it completely wrong. When I read specs that say authoritative, my mind instinctively goes to a strong voice, a firm read, like I'm the boss, shut up and listen to me, like that kind of thing. And what Tina was pointing out was that is actually completely wrong. That, and she says it right in the podcast. She's like, Mark, right now, when you are asking me questions on this show, you are doing it in an authoritative way because this is something that you know about and something you are credible with. And you're not talking any differently than you would talk normally, but you're coming across with authority because of your expertise in this field. And so it's really not at all about the specific sound of the voice or the sound of the read. It's about the intention behind the read. It's fascinating stuff, guys. I'm telling you, you got to listen to this episode coming out next Thursday with Tina Marasco. But she will get into that. She'll explain that a little bit more in a way that might be a little bit easier to understand. TJ says, I've received voice matching auditions for people I know I don't sound like. I'm concerned this might not be the best use of my time and those listening to me. Your thoughts? Anytime that you think you can't deliver the goods, I don't think there's anything wrong with passing, and I don't think there's anything wrong with explaining why you've passed. I'm not a voice match for hardly anybody, if anybody. So, those are not things that I would spend a lot of time sitting around trying to think about because it's not the best use of my time. And I'm not afraid to tell that. And wherever possible, if it's a client who's coming to me directly, for example, I might be willing to try to say, look, I'm not the right guy for this, but if you want, I can ask around and see if I can find somebody who might fit. And I'm not afraid to do that and have done that every once in a while. Is it appropriate to send my 50 to 60 word intro email in a LinkedIn DM? LinkedIn is a little bit of a different animal. One of the things that I've learned over the years on LinkedIn is that people on LinkedIn really hate being cold sold. So my strategy on LinkedIn is a little bit different from my email marketing strategy. So on LinkedIn, when somebody accepts my connection request, I'm not coming right out of the gate with a voiceover email. I'm coming out of the gate trying to start a conversation. Usually I'll comment on something on their profile, and I will try to get them to tell me a little bit more about themselves or a little bit more about their work. And if I can get them to talk about their work, then there comes a point in the conversation where I can say, hey, since you're doing that, I wanted to mention, and I can make a smooth transition, but I'm not just specifically coming right out of the gate, hitting them with a sale or a sales email. And so LinkedIn, I do think, is a little bit different kind of animal that you have to be a little bit more careful of. Briscoe says, I love listening to Tina talk VO. I learn something new every single time. She's so good, guys. She's so good. I need to get the library. I don't know why I don't have the library. We talk about that too. We talk about the library. My wife is always worried about the pressure cooker blowing up too. For what it's worth, I prefer low and slow smoking methods as well. It's just like turkey frying. There's a part of me that really wants to try turkey frying, but there was a part of me that was also a firefighter for 17 years. And I saw the end result of a couple of failed attempts at frying turkeys. And I saw them from the fire truck. And so it always makes me nervous. And so I've never actually tried it yet, but I think I have that same kind of thing going on in my brain with regards to using the pressure cooker. Guys, I want to mention this to you. 50 content ideas that add value. In this episode, several of you have asked questions about social media. We've talked about the importance of consistency over time, right? Don't just post once or twice. You have to show up consistently over time if you are going to make social media work for you. Well, this new ebook that I've created, 50 content ideas that add value, it's going to help you to be consistent over time. If you took this ebook and you just used one of those ideas each week, that would be a year of social media content. A year of social media content. So head to vopreneur.com, click on the store button. It's right here. 50 content ideas that add value. For $27, where are you going to find a better resource that could give you an entire year of social media? I put a lot of thought into the different types of posts and what kind of content would be interesting to an audience. I get outside of the voiceover box. I think that's really important. We can't just always be talking about voiceover, although many of the posts lean into that, but they come at it from a totally different perspective. I also believe that engagement drives algorithms. I don't believe. I know that engagement drives algorithms. And so I was very intentional about creating posts that would drive engagement and giving suggestions with many of the posts of how to drive engagement. And so for $27, it's an instant download, 50 content ideas that add value. It's going to take so much of the stress and guesswork out of what you're going to post on social media. And keep in mind, these content ideas, this is not like 50 content ideas for LinkedIn. Like, you could translate these posts into LinkedIn. You could translate them into X. You could translate them into Facebook. You could turn them into Reels and share them on Instagram. You could turn them into Shorts and post them on YouTube. So these are ideas that could be used just about anywhere. But head to vopreneur.com, click on the store button. You'll find it, 50 content ideas that add value. I also put a direct link to it right in the chat if you want to check it out. Make social media easier for you. Question on DMing on LinkedIn. How do you get them to talk about their work? Do you explicitly what projects you're working on? Yeah, so it's coming back to their profile and looking at what they say in their profile, and more often than not on their LinkedIn profile, they're going to talk a little bit about what their role is or what their company is or the type of work their company does. And so I'm just going to try to lean into that and get them to talk about it a little bit more if I can. That's one of the strategies that I use, but I'm very much about trying to start a conversation. What I would say with LinkedIn, here's the difference. If you're at an in-person networking event, or you're at church, or whatever, wherever it is that you meet people or you've met people in the past, you don't just walk up to somebody and shake their hand and say, "Hey, I'm a voice actor. Do you keep a roster of voice actors?" I mean, I'm assuming you don't do that anyway. You shouldn't do that if you do that, by the way. You should definitely stop. When you meet somebody in person, you walk up and you have a different kind of conversation. You start with a little bit of small talk and you get them comfortable, and everybody's favorite subject to talk about is themselves. And then everybody's second favorite subject to talk about is usually their work or what they do. And so if you start out with a little bit of small talk and ask a couple of questions and get them talking about those types of things, it opens up the door to a deeper conversation. And that's the way that it works when we meet people in person. Yes, sometimes we just meet people and ask them about the weather, and that's fine too. But you understand what I'm saying. LinkedIn, I think marketing on LinkedIn is more like that than it is just a straight up email of, "Hey, here's what I do. Can I do it for you?" Hopefully that makes sense. Bruce says, "I'm an introvert." Me too. Introverts unite. Good to see you. Are there strategies that make direct marketing easier for us introverts? I mean, one of the reasons why I love email is because of the fact that I don't have to actually be out there face to face and see people face to face. And so, not that I have a problem with it, but it's easier for me. I think all of these different types of marketing and content creation, I think any of them can suit themselves to introverts just because we can still do it from the privacy of our own home, right? Now, did I have to get comfortable with the idea of putting myself out there on the internet? Yes, I did. Does doing Free Advice Friday, as an introvert, on one hand, it's really easy because I'm just sitting here in my office right now. I can't see you guys. I mean, I see your comments, but that's about it. But it's just me sitting in my office by myself right now, talking on the internet, assuming that there are people who are out there listening to me. And so on one hand, that's really easy for an introvert. On the other hand, do I sometimes say things on Free Advice Friday and then spend the rest of the afternoon wondering about whether or not somebody's going to get upset about something that I said, or wonder whether or not somebody's going to misinterpret something that I said? And does that sometimes occasionally cause me a little bit of grief and stress? Yes, it does. And that's the struggle of the introvert. But the trade-off comes in what doing Free Advice Friday ultimately does for my business. And so I'm able to get past it. And so part of all of this for me is understanding my why and realizing that there's a bigger reason for why I'm doing these things right now. And sometimes I might have to get a little bit uncomfortable to do things. Getting on stage at VO Atlanta the first time was one of the most stressful things I've ever done in my life. But I knew that if I wanted to grow my coaching business, I needed to learn how to do that. I needed to do the hard thing. I needed to push through that hard thing in order to get the rewards on the other side. And I would say I've taken a similar approach to marketing my voiceover business. It's not always comfortable for me to have some of those conversations because I'm not a natural conversationalist, because I'm literally borderline hermit. I know people don't believe that, but it's true. I'm literally borderline hermit. But I know that on the other side of that conversation, there's a trade-off that makes it worth it. And so that's one of the things that I think about when I'm doing my marketing. What is the simplest way to edit a video for someone with minimal experience? I love Canva and have never tried using it for this, but I think you said you do. You can do some basic video editing in Canva. I would also say CapCut. I believe that's one of the ones that a lot of people are using right now, and I think you can use it for free. So it's supposed to be pretty intuitive. So I think that is one that you could possibly look at. I guess it depends on how deep you want to get into video editing. But I would say that would be one of the simpler forms of video editing that you could look into. I have Adobe Premiere. I get that with my Creative Cloud subscription. I would not call Adobe Premiere simple, but it's pretty powerful. And I've been able to learn it over time because thankfully there's a ton of YouTube tutorials for it. DaVinci Resolve is software that is similar to Adobe Premiere, but it is free. Also, maybe not the most intuitive, but an incredibly large pool of community-based resources that you can tap into to learn how to do things. And so that might be one that you would be interested in checking out as well. Guys, I want to mention this very quickly. If you want to market like the top marketing voice actors who are making money and doing this every day, why not just replicate the things that they are doing? That would make life so much easier, right? Tony Robbins talks about the idea of modeling. There's no reason to go out and reinvent the wheel. If somebody else has already done what you want to do, just figure out how they did it and model them. And so with that in mind, I created a new resource. It's called 10 Marketing Habits of Top VOs. And that is a free guide that I'm giving away. If you go to voiceovermarketingplaybook.com, you can sign up to get that guide, and it is going to offer you some different tips on some of the habits that some of the top marketing VOs are using. And this is based on what I see, conversations that I have, coaching sessions that I've done, and just really having an opportunity to learn what other people are doing, and obviously what I'm doing myself as well. So head to voiceovermarketingplaybook.com, and you can grab that free guide. And use that for some helpful insights into how you can level up your marketing. All right, let's see. The VO Atlanta experience is an interesting one for sure. I'm also a borderline hermit as well, as surprising as that may sound. And you know what? It's gotten easier for me over time. Obviously, the first couple of VO Atlantas were tough. But I also know what my limits are too. And that's why usually by 5 or 6 o'clock at night, I'm gone. You will not see me. It's not that I don't love you guys. It's not that I don't want to hang out with you. It's just that my body is telling me I'm done. My brain is telling me I'm done. And so I need to go back to my room. I need to sit in the quiet. I need to give myself some time to recover so that I can wake up the next day and do it all over again. And so, we've all got our coping mechanisms. Last year at VO Atlanta, everybody was commenting on the fact that I had a stress ball in my hand from start to finish. Like literally from the moment I arrived in the hotel until the moment I boarded the plane, I had a stress ball in my hand. Sometimes that's my coping mechanism. I have sat through the entire duration of this live stream with this guy. He's my little fidget toy that I use. It's like my Linus safety blanket, I guess. But it helps when you're an introvert and you're doing something that's a little bit outside of your comfort zone. So, whatever works for you. All right, guys, this has been awesome. Thank you for coming on. As always, I do appreciate that you give me time on your Friday afternoon and that you spend an hour with me. And I certainly hope that I'm able to add some value to you through the advice that is given on this show and the questions that get answered. I'm grateful. I'm grateful that you guys show up and that you give me the opportunity to do this. And so thank you for that and for showing up every week. I will not be here for Free Advice Friday next week. I'm very excited to be heading to Seattle for the first time, and I'm going to be teaching an email workshop in Seattle on Tuesday. That's happening through the Seattle Voice Academy, so check that out if you happen to be in the Seattle area. I would love to see you there. That's going to be Tuesday afternoon. We're doing that, a 3-hour email workshop through the Seattle Voice Academy. And then on Thursday, I'm going to be teaching an email workshop in Vancouver. I think that one is sold out at this point, but that's through the True North VO Jam. So I'm very excited to be doing that. But I will actually be flying home from Vancouver on Friday afternoon, so I will not be available to do Free Advice Friday next week. But keep an eye out for that new podcast, and don't forget to check out the current podcast. If you're thinking about starting a podcast, I'm telling you, you have to listen to this episode with Melanie Scroggins. Fantastic episode. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Happy Mother's Day to all the moms who are watching. That's my next thing now. I got to go do some shopping so that I'm ready for Mother's Day on Sunday. All right, everyone. Whatever you decide to do this week, as always, have fun, stay safe, and go find some leads.